So in previous lecture we were done till central tendency dispersion and statistical description of data. So let's revise rest of the chapters now. We'll revise only formulas and the basic calculations and all the properties. Okay, so first let's start with correlation regression. Okay, so correlation is relationship between two variables. For example, when one variable increases, whether the other variable increases or decreases, that is called as correlation. In our syllabus we have multiple measures of correlation, of which first most basic measure जो हम ग्राफ पे ड्रॉ करते हैं, which we draw on graph, is what? First measure of correlation is
scatter diagram.
Scatter diagram. Okay, you can turn on your mics to speak, everyone. Okay, and then you can turn it off. It will be better so that it will be revision for you also. Scatter diagram, good. Fine. So scatter diagram is just plotting all the xy points on graph. It gives us only the nature of correlation but not extent of correlation. Nature means it tells us whether the correlation is positive or whether it is negative. It does not tell us how much correlation is there. Right. So by looking at this diagram we cannot say whether correlation is like 3, 4 or something. We cannot quantify it in numbers. One more property of scatter diagram which can be useful for MCQs is that scatter diagram can detect curvilinear correlation like this, which cannot be detected by our correlation coefficient R. Fine. Second measure of correlation, which is the most used or most important measure, is anyone?
Karl Pearson.
Correct. Karl Pearson's product movement correlation coefficient. Fine. Karl Pearson's product movement correlation coefficient. For this we have to see one more measure first, something called as covariance. For this you have to again revise something from chapters of measures of dispersion. Understand? Absolute measures are those measures which give an answer in absolute terms, that is for one single set of data, whereas relative measures are used for comparison. These are used for single set of data. So we have to first see the absolute measure, which is called as covariance, and then relative measure, which is called as correlation coefficient or denoted by R. Fine. So first we'll have to find covariance. From that we can find correlation coefficient. So formula of covariance between x and y is, anyone? Either you can type or you can speak. It will be better if you speak so that it will be your revision also fast. Covariance, anyone?
Summation of xy divided by n minus the product of the means.
Correct. Perfect. Summation xy by n minus x bar y bar, or the original formula is some x minus x bar y minus y bar ka sum divided by n. However, from exam point of view, we will use this formula, not this formula. But you should know the second formula, because in exam they might give this value and ask you to find covariance. So you should know this formula also, second one. Although use this from exam point of view because it is easier to calculate faster. We'll calculate some examples. Fine. So covariance is summation xy by n minus x bar y bar. Okay. What is standard deviation of x? Anyone? Summation x square by n minus x bar square. Standard deviation of y is square root of summation y square by n minus y bar square. Now from covariance sigma x and sigma y, we can find correlation coefficient as covariance of xy upon sigma x sigma y. Again, from exam point of view, if there is very less chance that they will ask you to calculate this because it needs a lot of calculation. But if it is asked, don't use this formula, use the another formula, which is n summation xy minus summation x summation y upon square root of n summation x square minus summation x bracket square into square root of n summation y square minus summation y bracket square, because this is easier to use on calculator than the first formula. Fine. So these are the four important formulas while calculating R, or Karl Pearson's product movement correlation coefficient. Can anyone tell me R lies between which two values?
Negative 1 and
Correct. Minus 1 and 1. Minus 1 indicates what kind of correlation?
negative. Highly negative.
Okay, perfect negative. Ayush. Right.
Yeah.
And positive 1 indicates perfect positive. 0 indicates no correlation based on this. Correct. Fine. We'll see other properties of this, but before that let's try to calculate this for some sample data. Just one question. Let's say xy values are given to us as, let's say 10, 12, 13, 15, 20. Y is given as, let's say 7, 6, 4, 3, 0. Let's calculate covariance xy first. Okay, those who know how to calculate fast and tell me the answer. I'm just writing all the steps here. Summation xy by n minus x bar, y bar. So first we'll have to calculate x bar and y bar. For that, take total and find average. 10, 12, 13, 15, 20, 70 by 5. So average of x is 40, 14. Average of y is 4. So this is going to be 14 into 4, and summation xy will have to find. For finding summation xy, how do we do it on calculator? X into y m plus, x into y m plus, x into y m plus, and so on. So 10 into 7 m plus, 12 into 6 m plus, 13 into 4 m plus, 15 into 3 m plus, 20 into 0 m plus. If you press MRC, we get 239. If anyone has got it till now, anyone? Covariances.
Yes, sir.
How much?
Negative 8.2.
Correct. Minus 8.2.
Yes, sir. Minus 8.2.
Correct. It is less likely that they will give a very complex example in exam to calculate all this, but still it can come. Even if one question comes, it will give you bonus marks. Fine. Covariance. If we want to calculate sigma x, we will need square root of summation x square by n minus x bar square. Okay. Minus x bar square means it is going to be minus 14 square. We'll have to calculate this figure, summation x square. How do we calculate summation x square? X square m plus 10 square m plus 12 square m plus 13 square m plus 15 square m plus, and so on. So try it. 10 square, 12 square, 13 square, 15 square, 20 square. If we press MRC, we get this. So ideally you should have root of 11.6 as the answer. Check. And if you have got it, tell me sigma y by yourself. Okay, I'll wait for a minute. Everyone try to calculate this. Sorry?
3.405. 3.405.
3.405. That is correct. Root of 11.6. Correct. Try to tell me sigma y also. Let's see.
Root 6.
Root 6 is correct. Sigma y. Good. Fine. If anyone has any doubts in all this, you can ask me. Now you are live, so you don't need to wait for it. You can just ask me, no problem.
Root 6, sir.
Okay.
Sir, is it 2.449?
So root 6, whatever it is, 2.44, that is correct. Okay. But covariance is an absolute measure. So if we want to compare the correlation of this data and another data, then we cannot do it. For that, we must calculate R. R is calculated as covariance of xy upon sigma x into sigma y, which will be check if you are getting minus 0.005. 98289 something.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. Hmm. This means there is very high negative correlation. Like I said, it is exam may you'll get this entire calculation of R is very unlikely, but still, even if one question comes, you should be able to solve it because it should not take more than a minute ideally. Fine. So this was R. R lies between -1 and +1. This was the second measure of correlation. What is the third measure of correlation that we see in books?
Concurrent deviation.
Concurrent divisions, and before that Spearman's
Rank correlation.
correct rank correlation coefficient. Spearman's rank correlation coefficient is used when the data that is given to us are ranks. Ranks means when the data that is given to us is qualitative. Qualitative means, for example, a singing contest, dancing contest, or let's say ranks of students in some exam. So in such cases we can use Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. Spearman's rank correlation coefficient, understand this is a very important property. If the data is like this, for example x, y, let's say ranks given by person x are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, ranks given by person y are 5, 3, 4, 2, 1. Okay, in such case understand carefully, Karl Pearson's coefficient and Spearman's correlation coefficient both give the same answer, because Spearman's correlation coefficient is nothing but the same formula which is modified for ranks. That's it. So answer of both of them is same if the data is like this. Okay, but obviously this is a shortcut Spearman's. Can you even tell me formula of Spearman's?
1 minus 6 into summation d square by
By n into n square minus 1. Good. D square. D is what? Difference between x and y. So we have to take the square of this. So we can do it on calculator. So 1 minus 5 square m plus, 2 minus 3 square m plus, 3 minus 4 square m plus. Do it on calculator and press me. Tell me how much you get as summation d square. Is it 38?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So it should be something like this. Divided by n is 5. So 5 into 5 square minus 1 is 24. So if anyone can tell me this rank correlation coefficient. No, वापस. Try again. I guess you did some mistake.
Negative 0.9.
Negative 0.9 is the correct answer. Check once.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So that is Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. However, there is one special property of Spearman, that it is different when there are ties in ranks. When there are ties in ranks, can anyone tell me what is the formula that we are supposed to use for Spearman's rank correlation coefficient? 1 minus 6 into anyone?
Summation d square plus correction factor.
Correct. Summation d square plus the correction factor. The correction factor is number of ties. So what is it, anyone? Correction factor.
T cube minus t by 12.
Correct. Or you can just remember it like this. It is same as the denominator. In denominator we have n into n square minus 1. Similarly we have t into t square minus 1 by 12. Fine. So whenever we give ranks, if there is a tie, we should note down how many values are tied, and based on that we get this table of t. Based on that table of t, we can calculate t into t square minus 1 and then take sum and divide it by 12. I would suggest, if anyone has not done this till now, then skip it for now. Now is not the time to do it. Now is not the time to learn any new concept. So just focus on whatever you have studied till now. So it is okay. So this is Spearman's rank correlation coefficient. for ties. ठीक है. And last measure of correlation is coefficient of concurrent deviations. Anyone concurrent deviations formula is?
Plus or minus 2c minus m upon m.
Correct. 2c minus m upon m. We decide whether it is plus or minus depending on the part in root. Let's take one example quickly. Let's say x is again simple 1, 2, 10, 8, 3, 4. Y is, let's say, 10, 9, 7, 9, 8, 6. Okay. Then we only calculate concurrent deviations. We don't consider values here. So for x, from 1 to 2 it is increasing. So we write plus. Then 2 to 10 it is increasing, so plus. 10 to 8 it is decreasing, so minus. 8 to 3 decreasing, so minus, and again plus. For y we do the same thing. 10 to 9 it is decreasing, so minus, minus, plus, minus, minus. Then what do we do? Anyone? How do we find this c and m?
Multiply the deviation.
Correct. We multiply the deviations. If consider them as minus 1 and plus 1. So if we multiply, plus minus will be minus, plus minus will be minus, plus minus will be minus, minus minus will be plus, and plus minus will be minus. Positive deviations are called as concurrent deviations. That means there is only one concurrent deviation, which is this. Total number of deviations are called as m, which is 5. So if we put it in this formula, then we get 2 into c minus m upon m, which gives us 2 minus 5, that is minus 3 by 5. Now obviously root of minus 3 by 5 we cannot calculate because that is a complex number. So we take that minus sign outside and root 3 by 5, that is the answer. So whatever it is, minus 0.7745 something. That will be the answer to coefficient of concurrent deviations. Again, coefficient of concurrent deviations is only useful to find out nature of correlation. It is not concerned with values actually, because whether this is 10 or 100, it is not going to matter. Even if I write 100 or 1000 in place of 10, coefficient of concurrent deviations is still going to be same, because this plus sign and minus sign is not concerned with the amount. So for MCQ point of view, you should remember this, that coefficient of concurrent deviations is not concerned with the values of the observations, that is magnitude of observations. Fine. Now some properties related to correlation coefficients. For R, all three R's, that is Karl Pearson, Spearman, and coefficient of concurrent deviations, lie between minus 1 and plus 1. All three mean the same thing. Minus 1 is perfect negative, plus 1 is perfect positive, 0 is no correlation. Then for R, in fact for all three R's, the change of origin and scale rules are same. Can anyone tell me what are the rules of what is the rule of change of origin and scale? Is it affected by change of origin?
No.
No. It is affected by change of scale, but only the sign of change of scale. So if change of scale of x is positive but y is negative, then R will change the sign. So R will also become like negative or whatever it is. If it is minus plus, then again minus. If both are negative or if both are positive, then R is not changed. Okay. So for example, let's take a quick example. I have put a video on change of origin and scale on YouTube. So if you have any problem in that, you should watch it. It contains all the concepts. So for example, let's say if we have 2x plus 3 as u and 5 minus 3y as v, okay, and correlation coefficient between x, y is, let's say, 0.5. Now we want to calculate correlation coefficient between u, v. So the only thing that we need to check is change of scale. Tell me, change of scale of x, is it positive or negative?
Positive.
Positive, because this is the change of scale, multiplication factor positive, and for y it is
Negative.
negative. So R is going to change the sign, so R will become minus 0.5. If originally it was minus 0.5, then now it will become plus 0.5. So whatever it is, just change the sign, that's it. Fine. This was about correlation. Let's move forward to regression. Okay, we have one more formula to cover, but we'll cover it later. So let's move forward to regression. Regression means predicting one variable with respect to other variable. In that, one variable is dependent on other variable. I mean, we can only do it if one variable is dependent on other variable. Fine. So in case of regression, let's see the formulas first. If y is dependent on x, then we call that regression equation as what? Y on x or x on y? If y is dependent on x,
Y on X.
y on x. So y on x means y is dependent on x. The equation will be like this: y is equal to a plus bx. This b is called as regression coefficient. We can write it as byx. Fine. Formula of that byx is similar to formula of r, so it is easier to remember. N summation xy minus summation x summation y upon only the x part, that is n summation x x square minus summation x bracket square. Or there is another formula with covariance. Can anyone tell me what is the formula with covariance, or rather with r into something something?
Sigma y upon sigma x.
Correct. R into sigma y upon sigma x. This is also useful in a lot of questions where they give like some short questions, something is missing and you have to find it. Fine. Then we have to find a. How do we find a?
Y bar minus bx bar.
Correct. We just rearrange this. That's it. So it will be y bar minus b x bar. Fine. Similarly, if we want to calculate x on y, just do everything opposite. X is equal to a plus by. Then bxy will be, numerator will be same, n summation xy minus summation x summation y. Upon denominator will be n summation y square minus summation y bracket square. So that is going to be r into sigma x upon sigma y. And here again a, if you want to calculate, we can calculate it as x bar minus b y bar. So just rearrange this, that's it. Fine. Again, it is unlikely that a complete question of regression will come in exam, but still you should know the formulas because they can ask missing figure question or something like that. So that is important. Again, properties of regression coefficients are very important. Let's see some properties of bxy and byx. Can anyone tell me bxy into byx is equal to what?
R square.
R square.
R square.
Fine. R square is also called as
Coefficient of determination.
Correct. Coefficient of determination. And on a side note, 1 minus r square is called as
Coefficient of non-determination.
correct, coefficient of non-determination. This is one of the favorite questions of institute in this chapter. So this 1 minus r square gives us percentage of unexplained variance, and this gives us percentage of explained variance. So for example, if they ask what is the explained variance and your r square is coming to be, let's say, 0.36, and they ask what is the explained variance, so it means explained variance is 36%, and unexplained variance will be how much in this case then?
64.
64, correct. 1 minus 0.36, so 64%. Okay, fine. If we take square root of byx bxy, then we get r, obviously. But when is r positive and when is r negative?
When both are positive or when both are negative?
Correct. When both are positive, r is positive. When both are negative, r is also negative. It is not possible that byx is positive and bxy is negative. This is not possible. Okay, opposite also. Again, there are a lot of questions on this, so you should remember that. Third, line of y on x is y is equal to a plus bx. Line of x on y is x is equal to a plus by. Can anyone tell me intersection of these two lines gives us what?
Means.
Means, correct. So intersection gives us x bar and y bar. Good. Fine. Next, we have two regression lines, and let's say we have correlation coefficient. If correlation coefficient is 0, that means regression lines are okay, again perpendicular. Good. This is again good for MCQ point of view. This means regression lines, that is these two lines, are perpendicular to each other. Whereas if r is equal to plus or minus 1, that means regression lines are
Identical.
identical. That is correct. So regression lines coincide, or rather they are same. So y on x and x on y both will be same. There will be no difference between them. Fine. One more would be change of origin and change of scale for bxy, byx. Now this is again a bit, in module they have given it in a complicated way, but we can study it simply. Let's say u is equal to a plus bx and v is equal to a no, not a and b, let's take something else. Let's say c plus px and d plus qy. Fine. Then let's say we want to find b uv. If we want to find b uv, the simple way to remember is, okay, for b uv, logically tell me, will we have to take bxy as base or byx as base on the right hand side?
Bx.
Bxy, right? Because u is x and v is y, so we want bxy. Then what we'll do is we'll take change of scale of u upon change of scale of v. What is change of scale of u? P. Upon what is change of scale of v? Q. P by q. That's it. If you want to do the opposite, b vu, then it will be pyx into, anyone? Q by p. That's it. Again, this is important from exam point of view because they ask questions on this a lot of times, because this is the only part in regression where they can ask small questions which can be finished in 1 minute easily. So just know it carefully. One more part that we can see maybe from this chapter is formula of r. This is very unlikely to come, but formula of r in case of frequency data. Okay, regular formula of r is n summation xy minus summation x summation y upon square root of n summation x square minus summation x bracket square into square root of n summation y square minus summation y bracket square. If we have frequency data, then we will just replace, all the summation signs with summation f. Understand? N into, with right, summation fxy minus summation fx summation fy upon square root of n summation fx square minus summation fx bracket square into similarly n summation fy square minus summation fy bracket square. That's it. Fine. So this is something that you might remember. So again, very unlikely to come in exam because this is very lengthy, but still. Fine. I guess nothing else from this chapter is remaining. If you think of anything, let me know. I think no, let me just confirm once. But no. There is one small part at the end of the chapter which I think should have been removed, because you don't have the chapter of population and sampling, but they have given something called as probable error and standard error. You need to study that because they might ask it in exam since it is there in book. Does anyone remember what is probable error formula? Probable error of sample correlation coefficient is, anyone?
674.
0.614. It is 645 actually. 645 into what?
1 minus r square upon root n.
Root n, correct. Where this n is the sample size and this r square is the sample r. Okay. This gives us that if we take the entire population instead of sample, what is the probable error? That is, what is the scope in which we might get our actual correlation coefficient. Fine. Again, no need to focus much on it, but in exam they might ask a direct question. And there is something called a standard error. If anyone remembers, standard error is how much? Or what is the relationship between probable error and standard error? Okay, probable error is 2/3 of standard error. Fine. Again, just remember it from exam point of view. No need to go in too much detail because they have not given this chapter that this is from. Fine. So this is about correlation and regression. Let's move to next chapter, which is probability. There are no formulas as such, too many formulas in probability chapter, but still many students are afraid of this chapter because somehow it is difficult to identify the questions properly. So just remember that probability is combination of permutations and combinations and just logic and rule and or rule. That's it. Fine. So before we start with probability, can anyone tell me if we say case A and case B, it means multiplication or addition?
Multiplication.
Multiplication. So and is multiplication. Always remember this table. And is multiplication, or is
Addition.
addition. And in terms of set, and is what? Union or intersection?
Intersection.
Intersection, or is union. Always remember this table for sets, probability and permutations and combinations. So in all three chapters this is going to be useful. Fine. So in probability we saw multiple definitions. I mean, there are multiple definitions of probability. One is classical definition. Before going to that, let's define the events. Okay, there are three types of events that you should know. What are mutually exclusive events? Anyone? Mutually exclusive events.
That cannot happen.
Correct. Events that cannot happen together. So their intersection is 0. Fine.
0.
What are exhaustive events?
Just one of the events.
Is the sum.
Correct. One of the events must happen. That means other than those events nothing can happen. That means if we have two events, they can be mixed or not. I mean, they can be intersected or not. But this outside part is nothing. Phi. Okay. That means what? If we do A union B and we take its probability, then it is 1 because it is everything. And what are equally likely events?
The probabilities are equal.
Correct. Probabilities are equal. That's it. In equally likely events, there is no concept of whether they are intersected or not. They can be any. They can be related anyhow, but their probability is same. That's it. Fine. So in classical definition of probability, classical, we take all the mutually exclusive, exhaustive. So if we want to find probability of an event A, then we take all the mutually exclusive, exhaustive and equally likely events in favor of A. Again, might be useful for MCQ point of view, divided by all mutually exclusive, exhaustive and equally likely events. So we take all the mutually exclusive, exhaustive and equally likely events. For example, if we throw a dice 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and if we want even number, then in numerator we will take only even numbers, that is 2, 4 and 6. So it will be 3 by 6, which is 1 by 2. Fine. Probability will always lie between which two values?
0 and 1.
0 and 1. Fine. If probability of we want to calculate probability of an event not happening, P of A dash, that should be what? Okay, the screen is not updating, but I'll refresh it. But what is probability of A dash? Anyone?
1 minus P of A.
Correct. 1 minus P of A. That is correct. Fine. So correct, 1 minus P of A. Okay. If we ever write probability in terms of odds, then if I say odds in favor of A are 2:3, that means probability of A is how much?
2 by 5.
2 by 5, correct. Odds in favor, that means this is in favor of A and this is against A. So 2 is in favor, 3 is against, that means total is 5. If I ever say odds against A are, odds against A are, let's say 5:9, that means what is probability of A?
9:14.
Correct, 9:14, because this is against and this is in favor. So 9 by 14 will be the answer. Okay. This was classical definition of probability. Then there is set theoretical definition of probability. Again, might be important from MCQ point of view. If we want to use set K notations, then probability of A is n of A upon what? N of
Yes.
S. S is what?
Yes.
S is called as
Sample space.
sample space or the universal set. That is correct. Sample space or universal set. Oh, why iPad storage is full? No, just a second. Let me delete some things. Fine. So, okay. So this is the set theoretical definition. Then there is something called as a statistical definition. Under statistical definition, we define probability as, anyone? Anyone? Frequency of A upon total frequency, or n rather, where n tends to infinity. Again, might be important from MCQ point of view because they sometimes ask a definition in the MCQ. So limit n tends to infinity, frequency of that event divided by total frequency, that is the statistical definition of probability. Fine. There is one more definition, if anyone remembers. What definition is that? ठीक है, modern or axiomatic definition. Okay, can you tell me modern or axiomatic? In modern or axiomatic definition, we define probability using axioms. Axioms is statements. So we write multiple statements to define probability. What are those statements? That if we want to call a function as probability function, so for a probability function, first, every probability should be greater than what? Tell me, every probability value should be greater than 0. Sum of all probability values should be equal to what?
1.
1, which is rather probability of sample space.
Yeah.
Correct. And
Yes.
if events are mutually exclusive, then probability of A, let's say union B, union C is equal to probability of A plus probability of B plus probability of C. Correct. If they are mutually exclusive. Again, might be important from MCQ point of view. This is called as axiomatic definition of probability. Fine. So these were definitions of probability. After that, there are some formulas. Like if we want to calculate probability of A union B, then we can use sets ka approach. And how can we calculate?
A plus B minus n of A intersection B.
Correct. So P of A plus P of B minus P of A intersection B. So understand union means or. So if ever in question they ask probability of this or this, probability that it will be a red or blue ball, white ball or pink ball, or it will be an even number or perfect square. So whenever it is or, remember that you have to add the two and subtract the intersection always. Don't forget about this. Fine. If there are three events, P of A union B union C, then we calculate P of A plus P of B plus P of C minus
P of A
Correct.
intersection C. Intersection C.
no
P of A intersection C.
correct, and P of B intersection C,
Minus intersection of all.
and no, not minus. What do we do?
Add.
Add.
Plus.
Intersection of all. Correct. Good. Fine. If events are mutually exclusive, that means there is nothing common, then this does not come into picture. So it is just addition, that's it. So that is why in the table above we have written that or means addition. Always remember that or means addition. Now let's go to the rule of AND. If we have P of A and B, that is A intersection B, then AND means multiplication. So P of A into P of B, but only when
Independent.
correct. Only if A and B are independent. Okay. if they are not independent, then it has to be, if they are not independent, that means what? Either A is dependent on B or B is dependent on A. So it is either P of A into P of B but given A, या फिर P of B into P of A but given B. Okay, from this we get the given formula, which is again very important. P of A given B will be, from this if we rearrange,
P of A intersection B upon P of B.
correct, P of A intersection B upon P of B. This is again very important to remember, because even ever if they ask what is the probability that you will get an even number, given that we already have a perfect square. So whenever something is given, always try to write it in form of A given B, B given A, something like that. Okay. Similarly, formula of B given A will be what? In numerator, in denominator we'll just have P of A.
P of A.
Fine.
P of A.
Okay. Always remember that this denominator cannot be 0. That means there is one MCQ in module which is good. So cannot be 0 means this cannot be an impossible event. So P of B cannot be impossible, A, and here A cannot be impossible event. Fine. Again, one more property to remember is,
Sir,
yes.
so how do we determine whether A and B are independent or not?
Whether A and B are independent or not. Okay, fine. If you want to determine whether A and B are independent or not, then we check what is their combined probability, and then we check what is the product of their individual probabilities. If they are matching, then we say that they are independent. Okay. Like for example, if the case that is given is, let's say we have to draw 2 balls, but without replacement. Without replacement means,
Like when we remove the first ball, we do put it back.
correct. Let's say there are 10 red balls and let's say 5 white balls. Okay, and we have to draw 2 balls without replacement. That means when we draw first ball, we have to keep it aside. We don't have to replace it, and then we have to draw second ball. Fine. What is, and we want probability that second ball is white. We want probability that second ball is white. Now can I say that probability depends on first ball?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because if first ball is red, then that probability is going to be, probability of the second ball is going to be 5 out of 14. But if that first ball is white, then it is going to be 4 out of 14. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Fine. So in such cases, we can see whether one event, happening of one event affects the other event or not. If it affects, then they are not independent, otherwise they are independent. If this is with replacement, then what will happen?
They are independent.
Correct.
5 by 15 5.
Correct. Always it will be 5 by 15 in both cases, because it does not matter what is the first ball. Good.
Yes,
Fine.
sir.
Now, there are multiple points here. Understand, if we want to check whether 3 events are independent, then we have to check these things. Understand, we have to check whether this is equal to P of A into P of B into P of C. But we also have to check whether this is equal to P of A into P of B. We also have to check whether this is equal to P of B into P of C, and what else we'll have to do?
P of A into P of C.
Correct. So in module there is a question, how many conditions are required to be satisfied for 3 events to be independent. So there are 4 conditions that are required to be satisfied if we want 3 events to be independent, A, B and C. Okay, fine. Now one more point to remember is, if 2 events are mutually exclusive, here A and B are mutually exclusive, then A and B are, or A and B cannot be independent. Okay, they are always dependent on each other if they are mutually exclusive. If they are mutually exclusive, then they are always dependent on each other. So this is again good from MCQ point of view. If 2 events are mutually exclusive, then they cannot be independent. Okay, fine. Next. I guess that was it about probability formulas. Let's see last part of probability, which is connected to next chapter, that is theoretical distributions. So let's start fast. The last part of probability is random variables. Random variables can be of two types. Which two types? Anyone? Fast.
Discrete and continuous.
Discrete and continuous. That is correct. Fine. We see two discrete distributions and one continuous distribution in the next chapter, that is binomial, Poisson and normal. But fine, before that, for discrete distributions, two conditions must be satisfied by that random variable. What are the two conditions that must be satisfied?
If x is more than or equal to 0.
Correct. And
Summation of
sum of f of x is
probability is equal to
1.
1.
Correct. Fine. And this function is called as probability mass function in case of discrete variable. It should follow these two properties, that fx should be greater than or equal to 0 and summation fx should be 1. Or we write, instead of fx, we generally write it like this: probability that x is equal to x is greater than or equal to 0 and summation of probability is equal to 1. Fine. One more point that is to be noted here is expected value of x can be calculated as
variables into probability.
correct. Variables into probability, that is summation px, and variance of x can be calculated as
Square into p minus c of x.
square, and that is good. So summation px square minus summation px bracket square actually. Fine. So that is the variance, or we can write it as e of x square minus e of x whole square. Then for continuous variables, the function is called as, it is not called as PMF, it is called as probability
Density function.
PDF. Good. Correct. In this case also the same two properties are there, that is f of x should be greater than or equal to 0, but the other property is not summation, it is integration of fx should be equal to 1 from lowest value to highest value of x. Fine. Then here also if we want to calculate ex, then it is the same thing, just instead of summation we use integration. So it is integration fx into x dx from lowest value to highest value, and variance is again same, e of x square minus e of x bracket square. Again, like I said, if someone has not done this till this point, then now is not the time to do it, skip it. Okay, till now if you have not done this, then skip it, ignore it, no need to do it now. Okay, but ideally it is important. Fine. So this was about random variables. Then based on these random variables we get probability distributions. We have three probability distributions. Let's start with first, which is binomial. Binomial distribution is discrete or continuous?
Discrete.
Discrete. That means it has PMF. What is its PMF? Probability that x is equal to x is given as anyone?
X q power n minus x.
Correct. Q raised to n minus x. Correct. That is why it needs only two parameters. If x follows binomial distribution, we need only n and p to get the entire distribution. Correct. N is number of trials, x is number of successes that we want.
Probability of success.
Correct. P is probability of success and q is 1 minus e. Fine. In case of binomial distribution, mean of binomial distribution is
N into p.
np.
N into p.
Variance of binomial distribution is
N into p into q.
npq. Binomial distribution is symmetric when
P is equals to 0.5.
correct.
P is equal to q is equal to
Correct. And when it is symmetric, then its variance is maximum, which is equal to n by 4, because it will be n into half into half. Fine. Again, this is something that is worth remembering from MCQ point of view. So its variance will be n by 4 and it will be maximum when it is symmetric. Fine. Mode of binomial distribution can be calculated using n plus 1 into p. If n plus 1 into p is non-integer, then what do we do?
Largest integer in
Correct.
into n plus
Or you can just remember it as round it down, that's it. For example, if let's say n is 10 and p is 0.5, then what will be n plus 1 into p? Anyone fast?
5.5.
5.5. So what do we do is we just round down. Round down, so
Five.
it will be 5. That's it. Mode is 5.
5.
But if this is integer, like for example, if n is 9 and p is 0.5, then what will be n plus 1 into p? 5. Then there are two modes, 5 and anyone?
6.
5 and 6 or 5 and 4?
4.
4.
Okay,
4.
correct. Fine. Then binomial distribution is called as biparametric distribution. I guess no other property is pending. Okay, if I am skipping over any property, let me know. I think nothing is pending. Let's go to Poisson. In Poisson distribution, there is only one parameter, which is
M.
m. Okay, fine. Yes, we did not discuss the binomial process and Poisson process, so let's discuss it fast. Okay, I'll just say it. Remember, just understand. Binomial distribution is made up of trials called as Bernoulli's trials. Correct. Bernoulli's trials must follow certain properties. All Bernoulli's trials must have same probability of success and failures. All Bernoulli's trials must be independent of each other, and all Bernoulli's trials, I mean the number of Bernoulli's trials must be finite, a positive integer. Fine. So in such cases binomial distribution is applicable. For Poisson distribution, what is the PMF? Anyone?
E raised to minus m into m raised to x upon x factorial.
Fine.
X factorial.
Correct. E, if in exam value of E is not given e raised to minus m, then E will approximately take as what?
2.72.
Or rather you should take 2.71828.
8.
Fine. But in exam generally they will give e raised to minus m, but if not you should remember this. Okay. For Poisson distribution we can apply same properties of, we can check same properties as we check for binomial. What is Ex?
M.
M. What is variance?
M.
M. Again for mode we have to just check m. If m is non-integer,
Down value.
round down.
Down.
If m is integer, then two modes. What
M
two
and
modes?
M minus
M and
1.
Correct. M and m minus 1. Correct. Good. Fine. For Poisson distribution, what else we saw? Okay. We can approximate binomial distribution with Poisson distribution. If n tends to infinity and p tends to 0, then we can approximate that binomial distribution. That binomial distribution with np can be approximated as Poisson distribution with one parameter n into p. Okay. So in exam, if the questions are like 100 samples are there and 1% probability that it will be defective, then we'll not use binomial distribution, we'll use Poisson distribution. In case of Poisson distribution, the graph looks what? It cannot be symmetric, it is positively skewed. Perfect. The graph looks positively skewed. That is, most values are near the y-axis. Okay, that is why this is called as distribution of rare events. Okay, because this generally happens when the events are rare, so that probability of less events happening is more, probability of more events happening is less. Fine. The last distribution of the chapter is normal distribution, which is a continuous distribution. Normal distribution has two parameters. What two parameters?
Mean and variance.
Correct. U and sigma square. Okay. Correct. Mean and variance are its two parameters, which are the mean and variance of the distribution itself. Fine. This is a continuous distribution, so it does not have PMF, it has PDF. What is PDF of normal distribution? Anyone? Anyone? PDF of normal distribution.
1 by sigma
Hmm.
root of 2 pi
Hmm.
e raised to the power of minus half
Okay.
into x minus
Hmm.
mu divided by
Huh.
sigma whole square.
Okay, that is correct. Good. That is correct. I've just written it in a different way, but that is the correct answer. So 1 by sigma root 2 pi into e raised to minus x minus mu bracket square upon 2 sigma square. That is the formula or PDF of normal distribution. So generally in exam they ask you to identify how to like what are the parameters of that normal distribution. So you should know that. For a standard normal distribution, what are the parameters? For a standard normal distribution, mean is 0 and variance is 1. Normal distribution is always symmetric. Okay, for standard normal distribution, this is mean will be 0. For others, it will be something, and variance will be 1. Okay. If we want to calculate probabilities of normal distribution, then we have to go to table, standard normal distribution table. We cannot just do it from calculations. Fine. So will not go into table right now. So I hope you have studied it. Right now there is no point in revising that table. Generally in exam they give the values. Just some points to be noted for normal distribution are its mean is what? क्या? Sorry. Mu हाँ correct. And variance is variance. Fine. Its mode or median will be
mean.
Same as mean, correct. Its points of inflection are
SD and mean plus N.
correct. Mu minus sigma and mu plus sigma. Good. Its quartiles are Q1 and Q3.
Minus 0.65 sigma.
Not 0.65. Anyone?
0.67.
675. Correct. Mu minus 0.675 sigma and mu plus 0.675 sigma. Correct. So if asked, you should be able to calculate quartile deviation. Quartile deviation is just 0.675.
Minus Q1 divided by.
Correct. So 0.675 sigma. Mean deviation about mean, median or mode is what?
0.8 into sigma.
Correct. 0.8 sigma. Actually it is 2 by pi ka square root. Sorry. Square root of 2 by pi into sigma. But from exam point of view, we take it as 0.8 sigma. So just 0.8 sigma you have to take. That's it. But in MCQ, if it comes, you remember that this is the MD. Okay. If I'm missing any property, let me know. No. I mean, if yes, let me know. Otherwise, let's just one last part, additive property. For binomial distribution, if x follows binomial distribution with parameters n1 and p, and y follows binomial distribution with parameters n2 and p, then x plus y follows binomial distribution with parameters
n1 plus n2.
correct,
N1 plus N2.
correct,
N1
and
plus N2.
p. If x follows Poisson distribution with m1, y follows Poisson distribution with m2, then x plus y follows Poisson distribution with
M1 plus N2.
just m1 plus m2. That's it. If x follows binomial distribution with parameters, not binomial, normal distribution with parameters, let's say mu 1 and sigma 1 square, and y follows normal distribution with parameters mu 2 and sigma 2 square, then x plus y follows normal distribution with parameters
1 plus mu 2 comma sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square.
correct, mu 1 plus mu 2 comma sigma 1 square plus sigma 2 square. That's it. Fine. One last thing, in binomial distribution, if n tends to infinity and p tends to 0.5, then binomial distribution tends to normal distribution. Okay. Then in Poisson distribution, if m tends to infinity, then Poisson distribution tends to normal distribution. So you should remember these approximations from MCQ point of view, theory MCQs. In statistics, a lot of questions are theory, so you should know this. Okay. If anyone has any doubt up to this point, let me know. Otherwise, only one last chapter remaining for revision, which is index numbers.
So I'm going to fit in the binomial distribution.
Area under normal curve.
Fitting, we'll see. Area under normal curve. Okay. Now, area under normal curve will not cover right now in this video, because that table, it will take time to cover. And I guess can do it. If you have any doubt, you can ask me on the Telegram group. But otherwise, just you should know how to convert this into standard normal distribution, that is Z, and calculate the probability. Right now, will not cover in this video. Okay, fine. So you can ask me separately the doubt, no issues. And fitting, yes, I'll explain fitting. If you want to fit a binomial distribution, then let's say some data is given to us. We'll not give a data, just let's say some data is given to us, and we want to fit the binomial distribution. Then we fit on the basis of mean. What do we do first? We calculate mean of this data. We calculate mean of this data by doing summation fx upon summation f. This mean, we set it as equal to mean of binomial distribution, okay, which is E of x. But what is formula of mean of binomial distribution?
N into P.
N into P. So n we know, we take P hat, approximate value of P. So we get some value of P. Let's say this mean is 5. So P will be what then? 5 by n. Okay. Then based on that P, we can get Q also. It will be 1 minus P. We have n already. N is the number of items here, 0, 1, 2, up to something. And based on that, we can calculate probability for each value. Again, I'm not going into too much detail right now. So just this is the concept. If you have any doubt, let me know. But those who have not done it till now, if there is someone who does not even know this concept till now, then for now you should leave it, because there is only 1 day remaining now. Just focus on whatever you have done. But you should ideally do it. So those who have done it, if you have any doubt, let me know. For Poisson distribution, we follow the same process, but we set x bar equal to what? M hat, right? Approximate value of M. That's it. Fine, that is correct. So if there is anything skipped from these chapters, let me know. Otherwise, let's go to last chapter quickly, which is the index numbers. Okay, now I have said this in earlier videos also, that there is a chance that index numbers will have higher weightage now, higher as in 4 or 5 marks, because earlier index numbers plus time series had 4 or 5 marks weightage. Now time series chapter itself is not there, so index numbers might have 4 or 5 marks weightage now in this exam. We cannot know for sure. Fine. Index numbers. In index number, first we can see a basic price relative. What is formula of basic price relative?
P1 upon 0 into 100.
Correct. मतलब P of nth year, price of nth year by price of base year. That's it. Pn by P0. That is the price relative. If we always keep base year as same, then this is called as a chained index number. Chain index number. If we keep base year as previous year, then it is called as anyone? Or rather, chain relative.
Link relative.
Link relative. Perfect.
Link relative.
So chain relative or link relative. Okay. Then index numbers can be based on price, quantity or value. Value index number is only one, but price and quantity index numbers can be calculated using multiple ways. Let's see those multiple ways. So methods of calculating index numbers are divided into two main parts: simple methods and weighted methods. Again, there are two parts: aggregative and average of relatives. Same, aggregative and average of relatives. That's it. Fine. Simple aggregative method. What do we do? Understand? We add prices of all the commodities and then we find the index number. Let's take a very small example. Let's say we have commodity A, B and C. and let's say year 0 and year 1. Prices are 10, 15, 20 or 25, and let's say in year 1 prices became 15, 20 and 20. Okay, then if you want to calculate simple aggregative method, then what do we do, anyone? You just do summation of Pn by summation of P0, that's it. What is summation of nth year, first year? Fast. How much? 55, and this is 50. So index number will be 55 by 50, that's it, into 100, that is implied. If we want simple average of relatives, can anyone tell me what do we do? Okay, we don't take total, we calculate individual index number. What is index number of A?
15 by 10.
15 by 10.
15 by 10.
Okay, 15 by 10, will it be 150? Correct. What will be index number of this? 20 by 15, is it 133.333?
Yes, sir.
And this 80.
80.
We take average, that's it. So either simple aggregative or simple average of relatives, any method we can use. There are under simple methods, okay, under these two. Fine. Both of them make no sense because they don't consider any weights. Simple aggregative method considers hidden weights. This is again important from MCQ point of view. Simple average of relatives is okay, but this is simple average which is not useful to us. So weighted average methods are better. Let's see the weighted aggregative methods. In weighted aggregative methods, we saw certain formulas. Laspeyres method, what is the weight? What is the weight taken under Laspeyres method? Fine. So what is the formula of Laspeyres index number summation?
0.
Okay, understand that this is going to be same. The weights will change, so weight will be Q0 here. Fine. In case of Pasteur's index number, weight is
Q1.
Q1, that is Qn, that's it. Fisher's index number is what?
Plus
The GM.
Correct, GM of 2, geometric mean.
Geometric mean of Laspeyres into
Correct.
Pasteur's.
Then Dorbish-Bowley's index number is what?
average.
Average. It is not given in module anywhere, it is given in question bank. Fine. What is Marshall-Edgeworth's index number? What is the weight?
Qn plus Q0.
Qn plus Q0, that is correct. Fine. Okay. So these are weighted aggregative methods. There are certain other formulas also given in the additional question bank, but they will be given to you in question, so they will not expect you to know it. So there are multiple formulas, just some of them they have given in the audio. Weighted average of relative method is nothing different, it is just Laspeyres formula if we take base year as weight. Then certain points to remember here are, what is which index number is used when we want to find cost of living index number or consumer price index number.
Laspeyres.
Laspeyres, this is very important because this might come in exam, so they might ask you to calculate CLI. So CLI means Laspeyres index number, you should remember that. Fine. Then index numbers have certain tests of adequacy. First test of adequacy is unit test. What is unit test? What does unit test say?
They should be independent of the unit.
Perfect, they should be independent of the unit. So if we change unit of measurement, the index number should not change. This is not satisfied by simple aggregative method. Then second test is time reversal. What does time reversal test say?
P01 into P10 should be equal to 1.
Correct. Index number of year 0 as base an index number of year 1 as base, their product should be equal to 1 या फिर 100. What does factor reversal test say?
Multiplication of price index and quantity index is the value index.
Correct. Multiplication of price index number into quantity index number should be value index number. Value index number has only one formula, which is summation PNQN, that is current year value, divided by summation P0Q0, that is a base year value. So this is called as value index number. So price index number should into quantity index number should give us value index number. Last test is circular test. What does circular test say?
P01 into P10 into P20
Hmm.
should be equal to 1.
Perfect. Okay. So in short, you can just remember it like this. Circular test says that change of base should work. Change of base should work. That means if we want to change base of any index number, then it should match exactly. Okay, it does not match in any of these formulas, it only matches in simple price relative. Okay, so circular test is not satisfied by any one of them. It is only satisfied by simple price relative and weighted aggregative method with fixed weights and geometric mean of price relatives. So again, that is something that is important from theory point of view. You should ideally make a summary of what satisfies what, because that will help you. It will take 5 minutes and you will remember it till exam, matlab 2 days. Fine. So some other points to consider in index number chapter, small are, in questions generally they give some different methods which are not there in the module, like GM of relatives. What will you do if they ask GM of relatives? Okay, what did we do here? We calculated individual relatives and we took their simple average. Instead of simple average, in GM of relatives, what should you do? Calculate index numbers and take GM. That's it. If they ask group index number, what should you do? Those who have done question bank will know this. Group index number or general index number. Then we just have to take weighted average. That's it. You don't need to remember any of this. Based on the data given in the question, you should interpret what is asked. Okay. So generally they ask anything in index numbers which are not the methods which are not given in module. But from the data, you can look at the data and see, okay, weights are given, that means you have to calculate weighted average. Or they are saying GM, that means you have to take GM or something like that. Fine. Then you should remember some other things like price index number. Okay. What is reciprocal of price index number?
Purchasing power of money.
Correct. Purchasing power.
Power.
Fine. There is one more concept called as deflating, but again, like I always say in class, concept like deflating of time series, change of base, conversion of chain relative to ring relative, none of these methods require any formula. Always go by ratios. Like for example, if you know for any year, let's say year 1, 2, 3, 4, you should be able to convert years of index numbers easily. Then you don't need to remember any formula of change of chain to link, link to chain, change of base, yeah, deflating time series, nothing like that. So if we have something like in year 1, let's say index number was 100, when let's say wages were 500. In year 2, index number became 200, wages became 900. And if real wages are asked, real wages, that means what do we do? Anyone?
Cross multiplication.
Cross multiply, that's it. Real wages means we have to shift this 900 to first year. So if we cross multiply, 900 by 200 into 100 will be how much? Whatever it is, 450, right? So 450 will be the real wages. So always remember that it is always cross multiplication, ratios, nothing else. Like for example, if I say in third year wages are, or index number is let's say 300, and wages became 1600. This is not there, ignore. Then by how much did his standard of living increase? Can anyone tell me? By how much did his standard of living increase? As per year 1, he should have got how much? How much? 1500 is correct. But how much is he getting?
1600.
1600. That means by how much did his standard of living increase?
100.
100 rupees, right? Similarly, there are some questions like this. In year 4, index number increased to 500. Okay, I'll read the message just a second. Index number increased to 500. Then his wages increased to 2400. How much dearness allowance should he be paid to maintain his wages? Anyone? To maintain his standard of living, how much dearness allowance should be paid? 100 rupees. Again, same, cross multiply. 100 is 500, so 500 is to 2500. So he should get 100 rupees extra. So dearness allowance should be 100 rupees. He should get 100 rupees extra. That's it. So index numbers is all about cross multiplication, nothing else. So just remember that. Someone is asking, can you please explain question 16 additional question bank? Fine, I'll explain. So I guess everything else is done. So I will give you some instructions for exam and we'll stop. But before that, let's see that question 60. And then we'll stop. If you have any doubts, you can ask me till then. Sorry? If 1970 index number with base 1965 is 200, okay, always write it like this. Okay, there are 3 years, 1960, 65, 70. If 1970 index number with base 1965 is 200, so where should I write 200?
Hmm.
1970 is 200, right? Concentrate carefully. But what is the base in that case?
1965.
What is the base? 1965. So what should I write in front of 1965? What is base year index number always? 100. Fine.
100.
Okay. And 1965 index number with base 1960 is 150. So can I write it like this? 150 when this is 100. Okay. Now they're asking index number of 1970 with base this is what? That means if you just observe, can I say we just have to calculate this? Tell me if you have understood. 1970 with base 1960. So just cross multiply and find it. Can you find it? 100 is to 150. Then 200 is to what? Anyone?
100.
300 is correct.
300.
Fine, 300 is correct. Okay. 65 also we can take. 65 also is a good question. Concentrate carefully. Again, it is better to list all the years first. What years are given? 1994. '96, '97. Now we have to take one of the years as base. Okay. From the options, it looks like which year have they taken as base? Second year, that is 95, right? So let's take 95 as 100. And let's read all the data. In 1996, average price was 20% more than 1995. So in 1996, how much should I write now? 20% more means
120.
120.
220.
But 20% less than 1994. Now understand carefully. That means this was 20% less. than 1994. Correct. That means if this was 100, then this is 80. But now this is 120. So how much will this be?
150.
180, 120 by 80%. Is everyone getting how much?
150.
Correct. And moreover, it was 50% more than 1997 to price relatives using Achani. So they have okay, ignore this part, they have misprinted something. It was 50% more than 1997. That's it. 50% more than 1997 means what? If 1997, understand, it is, can I write it like this now? Let me erase this. It was 50% more, correct? That means if this was 100, this is 150. But now this is 120, that means this will be how much?
So this is what explained.
Okay. Did you understand the first part, 1994? It is correct.
Can you explain it from beginning?
Okay.
Please, sir.
Understand carefully. It is correct, those who have got it. So option A is the correct answer. Okay, focus like this. Make a table and always cross multiply. Okay, I don't know what happened. We have 4 years. Which year do we have to take base from options?
1995.
1995, so let's take it as 100. Now we want to find everything else. Fine. From first sentence, what can we see? Okay, just a second, it is refreshed. In 1996, average price of commodity was 20% more than 1995. That means 1996 will be how much? Can I say 120?
120.
Fine. But it was 20% less than 1994. That means, can I say if this was 100, then this is 80?
Yes, sir.
Got it. Fine. Now can you cross multiply and find this? How much?
150.
150. Again, moreover, it was 50% what? It was 50% more than 1997. That means, can I say if this was 100, then this is 150? 50% more. Got it? Again, cross multiply and find this. How much?
80.
80. There are 1 or 2 more questions like this, so you can try them. Okay. Good. Fine. Okay, then before we stop, just 2-3 points. Don't forget to take 2 calculators in the exam. Just in case one of the calculators stops working. It has happened with 2 students that I know. So strictly take 2 calculators to the exam. I mean, try to do that. Don't forget your admit card. You know that since you have attended 2 papers. But don't forget to bring HB pencil compulsory to darken the circles. Okay. Some students darken the circles with pens. Now that should not be, I mean, it is okay if you have done it for roll numbers, etc. But don't do it for questions, because you cannot erase that afterwards. And if the page gets torn, then you will not be able to do anything. So HB pencil is compulsory. If the pencil is not HB, then it is possible that your answers will not be read by their system. So that should not happen. So HB pencil, black ball pen for writing name. And for maths, there is no reading time. I hope everyone knows. You have only 2 hours. So as soon as you receive the paper, start writing it. Don't look at questions. Okay. All questions are going to be distributed randomly. So it does not matter whether you solve first question or 60th question. All questions have equal probability of being difficult or easy. So start from first question, go to 100 question. That's it. No need to turn the page and look at what is the next question, and it is okay even if it feels like first 20 questions if you feel difficult, for example, then also it is okay because next 80 questions have equal chance of being easy. In fact, if first 20 questions are difficult, that means it is very much likely that rest of the paper is going to be easy. So don't panic, just go in sequence. If you feel like any question is going to take more than 2 minutes, skip that question, go to next question and come back to it later. That is the strategy I recommend generally. Don't focus too much on questions where you don't know the concept. If you don't know the concept, then skip it. Go ahead. Okay. Don't waste any time on it. If it is a theory question, it will be solved in like 4 or 5 seconds. If it is a maths question, then it might take 2 minutes or something like that, or 1.5 minutes. But try to finish every question in 1 minute, preferably 1 minute. What if I know only 45 questions in exam? Why are you thinking from right now that you'll know 45 questions? Okay. Never go by that attitude that okay, what to do if I know only 45 questions. So don't go by that attitude. Just solve whatever you can. If you are confident about like 80-90 questions, then you can take some chances and just solve some questions just for chance. But if you are only confident about like 50 questions or 45 questions, then don't take any chances, don't darken any extra circles. Fine. Okay, that's it then. All the best everyone. If you have any doubts till then, you can ask me on Telegram. Okay, so let me know after exam how was the paper. Okay, rough space not enough. Okay, it is enough. They don't give any extra paper, but it is enough. Okay, so try not to draw too much. Try not to draw very big like numbers and diagrams. Draw them small. They don't give any extra paper, but whatever is given is enough. You have to return the paper, remember. So don't, ideally ICS says that you should not make any marking on the paper. So don't do any marking on the paper. Do it in the rough work. Yes, fine. Okay, bye everyone. All the best.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, in the test which you conducted, there was a question. In how many ways can any number of people be invited?
Correct.
So, can't we consider zero number of people?
No.
Or should we have, or should
When-
we start from one only?
No, when the question asks in how many ways can you select any number of objects from n objects, then you cannot consider zero in that. Okay, because selecting zero means not selecting, right? You're
Yes,
selecting.
okay.
You're selecting zero numbers. That means you're not selecting anyone. That is not asked. They are asking how many ways can you select someone. So you have to subtract one from that. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Chalo then. Bye everyone.